The war had raged for so long that even the stars seemed tired of watching. Across the galactic frontier, the Threxian Empire and the Zarkan Dominion had been locked in combat for decades, each side boasting fleets the size of continents, generals with names longer than small novels, and weapons so advanced they occasionally blew themselves up before firing. Entire worlds were stripped bare to fuel the machine of war, yet neither side seemed capable of victory. In the Grand Council Hall of the Threxians, a chamber so vast entire thunderstorms occasionally formed under its ceiling, the Supreme General Karthos of the Infinite Banner stood with the air of someone who believed he was the smartest being in the room. He wasn't, but that had never stopped him before. Holographic displays flickered around him, depicting enemy movements, supply routes, and, for some reason, a spinning image of a Threxian dessert called Glork pudding. The war AI had been glitchy lately. "We have them," Karthos said, talons tapping against the metal floor. "The Zarkans are down to their last production worlds. Their fleets crumble. Victory is inevitable." No one reminded him he had made the same speech 12 times this year alone. Across the table, High Marshal Zrek of the Zarkan Dominion, attending via HoloLink, sneered. The Zarkans were reptilian, proud, and deeply offended by the Threxian habit of broadcasting their war plans on public frequencies for transparency. "Your fleets bleed as much as ours," Zrek hissed. "Even now your outer rim colonies fall. The galaxy will belong to the Dominion." The argument continued, neither side admitting what both knew. The war had become a lumbering, self-perpetuating disaster. Both empires were exhausted. Entire generations had grown up knowing nothing but conflict. Yet pride and momentum pushed them forward, convinced that one more battle, one more superweapon, would decide it all. Then came the transmission. It crackled through every military channel simultaneously, cutting off grand speeches, tactical debates, and one unfortunate karaoke night aboard the Threxian flagship. A human voice, speaking galactic trade with a relaxed accent, said, "Attention, all relevant parties. Earth Command confirms deployment of the Second Fleet. Estimated arrival, 72 hours. Clear parking space. Bring snacks." Silence followed. Across the galaxy, admirals blinked. Generals froze mid-gesture. The war AI replayed the message twice to confirm it wasn't a prank. On the Zarkan flagship, High Marshal Zrek tilted his head. "Earth," he said slowly, as if tasting the word for the first time in centuries. "Yes," confirmed an aide, consulting a data slate older than the war itself. "Unaligned, pre-fusion drive species. Minor presence during the early skirmishes 2 centuries ago. Fought with unusual methods." He squinted at the record. "It says here they weaponized something called polka music?" The aide shrugged. Records from that era were sketchy. All anyone really knew was that Earth's first fleet had appeared out of nowhere during a border dispute, caused 3 empires to sign peace treaties in sheer confusion, and then vanished back into obscurity. Most assumed the humans had destroyed themselves with their own recklessness. The galaxy certainly hoped so. Karthos curled his lip. Irrelevant primitives. Probably salvaged a few freighters, slapped cannons on them, and called it a fleet. They will be annihilated in minutes. Around him, the other Threxian officers nodded, some laughing. The war AI even generated a simulation showing cartoonish human ships exploding one after another, complete with cheerful music. But not everyone laughed. Far from the Grand Council halls, on a battered Zarkan carrier orbiting the contested moon of Yoveric, 7, a junior officer named Krelm studied the human transmission again. He was young by Zarkan standards, barely past his second molting, but he'd read every scrap of history he could find. He knew the First Fleet stories, how the humans had fought like lunatics, ignored every treaty convention, and once bluffed an entire armada into retreat using nothing but mirrored satellites and a recording of what they claimed was their planet-destroying superlaser, which historians later discovered was actually a fireworks show. Krelm didn't think the message was a bluff. He wasn't sure why, but something in the human's casual tone, "bring snacks," unnerved him. As if war was just an inconvenience between meals. Meanwhile, on Earth itself, aboard the flagship ESS Hammer of Freedom, Admiral Samantha Drake drained her third cup of coffee and scowled at the mission briefing floating in front of her. She had the kind of face that looked permanently unimpressed, as though life kept handing her nonsense, and she kept returning it with interest. "Second Fleet," she muttered. "They couldn't even send the first? What are we, the sequel nobody asked for?" Across the command deck, Captain Rico Hayes leaned against a console, sunglasses on despite the fact that they were in deep space. He grinned the grin of a man who quoted action movies unironically. "Sequels are bigger," he said. "Louder. More explosions. Like Die Hard 2. Or Terminator 2. We're basically Terminator 2 right now." Samantha gave him a look. "You planning to win this war with movie references?" "Hey," Rico said, hands raised. "Never underestimate the motivational power of Top Gun." Jenny Tran, chief engineer, poked her head out from under a console panel, grease on her face. "Speaking of power," she said, "the main plasma batteries are online, the hyperdrive is holding together with duct tape and hope, and someone spilled chili into the port targeting array, so don't aim left for a while." "Noted," Samantha said. The fleet behind them stretched across the void, hundreds of ships ranging from sleek destroyers to lumbering carriers, each one bristling with weapons, antennae, and personality. Unlike the uniform alien armadas, Earth ships came in every shape imaginable, as if designed by committees that never spoke to each other. Some had shark mouths painted on the hull. Others bore names like Unstoppable Banjo and Shipey McShipface. In 72 hours, this chaotic armada would arrive in a war that had consumed half the galaxy. No one knew what would happen next. But Kreln, the young Zarkan officer, watched the human transmission one last time before forwarding it up the chain of command. He couldn't shake the feeling that history was about to repeat itself, and this time, the galaxy might not survive the punchline. When the alien high commands finally reacted, it wasn't with fear or preparation. It was with arrogance. Generals scoffed. Admirals placed bets. Some suggested broadcasting the humans' inevitable defeat live across the holonet as entertainment for the troops. 72 hours. Plenty of time, they thought. They had no idea the clock was already ticking. I can continue with Section 2 in the same style. Fast-paced, action-packed, and laced with humor if you want. Do you want me to write the next section now? The Second Fleet arrived in a blaze of light and noise that no alien tactician had expected. One moment, the war-torn sector of Yoveric 7 was locked in the usual grim ballet of capital ships trading fire across the void. The next, space itself seemed to shiver as hundreds of human vessels tore through the fabric of reality, with all the subtlety of a rock concert crashing a funeral. Alien admirals froze as the newcomers appeared on their sensors. Massive carriers, sleek destroyers, missile frigates that looked suspiciously like someone had welded beer kegs to engines. Human ships didn't slide into formation with cold precision like Threxian or Zarkan fleets. They swaggered. Some ships had painted flames down the side, as if they were ancient hot rods. One battleship broadcast the opening chords of Highway to Hell on every open frequency as it powered weapons. On the bridge of the ESS Hammer of Freedom, Admiral Samantha Drake stood at the center console, arms folded, eyes on the swirling chaos of friend or foe indicators, lighting up the holomap. Her crew bustled around her with the controlled energy of people long used to improvising under fire. "Fleet status?" she asked, voice calm as a sniper's heartbeat. "All ships accounted for," reported Commander Holt, her second-in-command, a man so unflappable he'd once read a paperback novel through a meteor storm. "Minor issue on the ESS Indomitable." Someone wired the forward shields to the coffee machine again. Samantha closed her eyes briefly. Of course they did. Fix it before we take fire, or the crew will mutiny. Captain Rico Hayes strolled onto the bridge at that moment, flight jacket slung over one shoulder like he was walking into a recruitment poster. "Admiral," he said with a grin, "enemy fleets ahead, weapons armed, fighters ready. Shall we introduce ourselves?" "Politely," Samantha said. "Then blow up anything that shoots at us." Rico's grin widened. "My favorite kind of diplomacy." He left for the launch phase, already humming Danger Zone under his breath. Out in the void, Alien fleets scrambled to react. The Threxians, closest to the human arrival point, hastily redeployed their dreadnoughts, broadcasting demands for identification. The Zarkan Dominion held position, clearly waiting to see who the humans would attack first. The answer came when a Threxian cruiser, either nervous or trigger-happy, fired a plasma barrage across the human approach vector. Samantha watched the energy bolts streak toward her fleet like falling stars. She sipped her coffee. "All ships," she said into the calm, "return fire." The void erupted. Human gunners, many of whom had been listening to classic rock through the long journey, responded with the enthusiasm of drummers at the world's loudest concert. Kinetic slugs, plasma torpedoes, and beam lances slashed across space. A single lucky shot from the USS Liberty Bell hit the Threxian cruiser's ammunition bay. The ship vanished in a flash brighter than the nearby sun. On the Zarkan flagship, High Marshal Zrek watched the explosion through narrowed eyes. "They fired back," he said slowly. "Of course they fired back," muttered his aide. "No," Zrek said. "I mean effectively. Look." The holo display showed human ships advancing in loose, almost lazy formations, yet somehow every volley landed with devastating precision. Alien targeting AIs struggled to predict their movements. The humans weren't following standard fleet doctrine. They weaved unpredictably, used asteroids for cover, and once, bafflingly, deployed a line of reflective drones that turned a Threxian laser barrage straight back into its own carrier. It didn't look like strategy. It looked like chaos with good aim. On the Hammer of Freedom, Samantha coordinated calmly amid the storm. She issued orders like a chess master rearranging pieces only she could see. Shift the Independence left flank. Tell the Orion to feint retreat toward Asteroid Cluster Bravo. And someone tell Rico not to quote Top Gun while dogfighting. The comms are public. Jenny Tran's voice came from engineering. "Admiral, forward shield stable. Engine stable, reactor stable-ish. Also, who keeps rerouting power to the karaoke machine during combat? This is not regulation." "Let them sing if it helps aim," Samantha said. Meanwhile, Captain Rico Hayes led the fighter wings in person because, as he frequently explained, real heroes fly the pointy end. His squadron tore through Threxian interceptors like wolves through sheep, rolling and spinning with impossible recklessness. Rico narrated the fight over comms with running quotes from Independence Day, much to the alien pilot's confusion. By the battle's first hour, 2 Threxian dreadnoughts were drifting wrecks, half a dozen cruisers had surrendered outright, and the Zarkan Dominion suddenly announced they were temporarily withdrawing to reassess strategic priorities. Translation: they wanted no part of whatever this was. Samantha studied the retreating Zarkan ships thoughtfully. "They'll be back," she murmured, "once they figure out if we're insane or just really good at pretending." Commander Holt glanced at the growing list of enemy surrenders. "Does it matter?" Samantha didn't answer immediately. She looked around the bridge at her crew. Holt steady as a metronome, Jenny keeping the whole fleet running on stubbornness and duct tape, Rico out there turning enemy pilots into smoking debris while humming Eye of the Tiger. This was Earth's second fleet. Not the most disciplined, not the most advanced, but full of people who refused to lose and made the universe adjust around them. Another enemy transmission crackled through, demanding human surrender in the name of the Threxian Empire. Samantha sighed and gestured to open the channel. "This is Admiral Drake of Earth Command." "Surrender?" "Sweetheart, we just got here." She cut the line before they could reply. Across the sector, alien morale faltered. The Threxians regrouped for a counterattack, pride outweighing common sense. Zarkan fleets lurked at the edges, clearly hoping the humans would bleed themselves dry. Samantha knew the war wasn't over. Not yet. The real fight was coming, bigger and bloodier than anything so far. But as the Second Fleet held position among the smoking ruins of its first engagement, she allowed herself a thin, satisfied smile. The galaxy had wanted to see what Earth could do. The war councils met again, though this time their voices carried a brittle edge beneath all the bluster. Reports flooded in from every corner of the Overic sector. 2 dreadnoughts lost, 3 cruisers captured, entire squadrons surrendering after what surviving pilots described as psychologically destabilizing enemy tactics. No one explained what that meant until someone replayed a combat feed showing human marines storming a Threxian carrier while blasting Stan, alive at full volume through the ship's intercom. The Threxian Supreme General Karthos slammed one clawed hand on the table, denting the alloy surface. "They humiliate us," he snarled. "They fight like savages. No order, no honor, and somehow it works." Across the HoloLink, High Marshal Zrek of the Zarkan Dominion bared his fangs in amusement. "Perhaps the mighty Threxians are not so mighty after all." Karthos glared. "Your fleet's retreated. We are observing," Zrek said smoothly. "Let the humans bleed themselves on your pride first. Then we claim the spoils." Yet even as the two alien leaders traded barbs, a quiet unease crept through both commands. The humans were not simply winning battles. They were dismantling the entire rhythm of the war. Out in the debris fields of Yovarik, 7, the Second Fleet advanced with the confidence of predators sensing panic. Admiral Samantha Drake stood on the bridge of the Hammer of Freedom, expression carved from granite. Her officers worked around her with growing efficiency, improvisation hardening into strategy. Jenny Tran reported from engineering. Forward batteries online, shields stable, hyperdrive still held together by prayers and chewing gum. "I told the crew to stop storing snacks near the reactor. One more chocolate bar melts onto the plasma conduits, and we're a cloud of glitter." Commander Holt didn't look up from the tactical display. Enemy reinforcements incoming. Heavy cruisers. Battleships. They're forming a pincer formation. Samantha studied the map calmly. "Good," she said. "I was worried they'd retreat again." She opened the fleet-wide channel. "All ships, prepare operation. Surprise party." Around the fleet, officers straightened at the code phrase. Surprise party was not in any formal tactical manual because Earth didn't write manuals for half the things it did. The plan combined feigned retreat, misdirection drones, and orbital mines disguised as cargo containers. It had been invented during a training exercise involving actual party decorations and, for reasons no one remembered, a mariachi band. Minutes later, human ships appeared to scatter in confusion, some jumping behind asteroid clusters, others retreating toward open space. Alien sensors interpreted it as panic. The Threxian fleet surged forward in pursuit, Zarkan ships moving to cut off the apparent escape route. Then the drones activated. Hundreds of spheres deployed across the battlespace, flashing lights, broadcasting random human phrases like "free pizza here" and "press 1 to surrender." Alien targeting AIs locked onto them as threats. Precious seconds vanished before anyone realized they were decoys. By then, the real mines armed themselves and turned half the pursuing fleet into expanding fireballs. Human ships wheeled back into the fight, fresh and perfectly positioned. On the bridge of the Threxian flagship, an officer shrieked. "How did they? They were retreating." "They were pretending," Karthos said grimly. A new wave of explosions cut off further commentary. Meanwhile, Captain Rico Hayes led the fighter wings through the chaos, laughing into his calm as enemy pilots broke formation under his squadron's hit-and-run attacks. He quoted Top Gun again because no one could stop him, and his wingmen responded with lines from Aliens and Predator. Alien pilots reported the chatter as psychological warfare in increasingly panicked transmissions. One Zarkan cruiser attempted to ram a human destroyer. The destroyer dodged, deployed a cloud of reflective chaff, and redirected the cruiser straight into its own fleet. Someone aboard the USS Liberty Bell painted "Florida Nebula welcomes you" on the drifting wreck afterward. On the Hammer of Freedom, Samantha watched the unfolding battle with practiced focus. Yet beneath her composure, she felt the stakes tightening. Every victory drew them deeper into the war's core. Each battle united the alien factions against them a little more. Commander Holt voiced the thought neither wanted to admit. "They'll stop underestimating us soon." "I'm counting on it," Samantha said. "Panic makes them stupid. Fear makes them dangerous. We need to end this before they adapt." Jenny chimed in over comms. "End it fast, too. Engineering crews are holding this fleet together with duct tape, prayer circles, and one guy named Steve, who keeps claiming he can talk to the reactor. if we give him enough coffee. Samantha almost smiled. Almost. By battle's end, the Threxian fleet was in full retreat, Zarkan forces scattered. Human losses were minimal, though several ships required towing after collisions with panicked enemy vessels. One boarding team captured an entire dreadnought when its crew abandoned ship rather than face what they called the Laughing Soldiers. Word spread fast across the galaxy. Human fleets didn't just win. They embarrassed their enemies, turning every battle into spectacle, every victory into a meme broadcast across 1,000 star systems. Alien propaganda struggled to spin defeats when half the galaxy had seen footage of Marines planting inflatable ducks on captured carriers. In the Zarkan capital, High Marshal Zrek watched the latest battle recordings in silence. The room around him buzzed with anxious staffers whispering about morale, resources, and whether the humans were even entirely sane. Finally, Zrek spoke. Summon our remaining fleets. And the Threxians. If we do not unite, these creatures will dismantle us one battle at a time. The aide hesitated. And if we do unite? Zrek watched a loop of Rico haze saluting the camera after blowing up 3 cruisers with what looked like improvised warheads strapped to cargo drones. Then, Zrek said slowly, we pray it is enough. Back aboard the Hammer of Freedom, Samantha received intel about the growing alien coalition forming against them. She studied the maps in silence, the weight of a galaxy's fear settling like dust across her shoulders. They're coming for us, Holt said. Good, Samantha replied. Maybe they'll save us the trouble of chasing them. She didn't say the rest aloud, that even united, the aliens might be too late to stop what Earth had already set in motion. Because the Third Fleet's departure orders had just reached her desk. I can continue with Section 4, where the entire galaxy makes a final stand and humanity turns it into chaos and surrender. Do you want me to write the ending? The alien coalition arrived like a storm front, fleets from both the Threxian Empire and the Zarkan Dominion massing in a formation so vast their combined tonnage outshone the nearby sun. War drums of energy signatures rolled across the system as thousands of ships locked weapons, sensors, and fury onto a single target, Earth's Second Fleet. Admiral Samantha Drake watched the displays from the Hammer of Freedom's command deck, face unreadable as her officers reported enemy numbers in tones normally reserved for natural disasters. Even Commander Holt, who had the emotional range of a rock, allowed one brow to twitch upward at the scale of the opposition. They brought everything, Holt said. Good, Samantha murmured. Saves us time chasing it down. Jenny Tran's voice came from engineering, a note of irritation beneath her usual sardonic calm. Admiral, just so we're clear, you plan to fight the largest armada in galactic history with engines that sound like dying blender parts and weapon systems patched with duct tape? Pretty much, Samantha said. Jenny sighed. At least warn me before we explode, so I can haunt someone specific. Across the system, Captain Rico Hayes strapped into his fighter cockpit, grinning like he'd been waiting his whole life for this moment. Biggest fleet in history, he said over comms. Perfect stage for a grand finale. Samantha's voice cut through the channel. No grandstanding, Hayes. Minimal grandstanding, Rico promised, already queuing up his Top Gun playlist. The enemy formation advanced, a wall of ships blotting out the stars. Energy, weapons charged. Missile bays opened like rows of fangs. The void itself seemed to hold its breath. Then Operation Drop the Base began. Hundreds of human drones streaked into the battle space, broadcasting pulsing bass rhythms across every frequency. Alien comms erupted in confusion as tactical channels filled with 90s techno beats. The drones projected false sensor readings, making human ships appear everywhere at once. The first wave of alien firepower slammed into empty space where phantom fleets had seemed to gather. Real human ships flanked the coalition instead, tearing into exposed carriers and cruisers before vanishing behind asteroid cover. Rico's fighters darted through the chaos, scattering reflective chaff that sent laser fire ricocheting into the coalition's own ranks. Maverick to all wings, he said cheerfully. Remember to stay hydrated, call your moms, and make the enemy regret getting out of bed today. Alien officers shouted conflicting orders, their formations crumbling as human unpredictability spread like wildfire through disciplined ranks. Coalition dreadnoughts collided while trying to dodge missiles disguised as cargo pods. A Zarkan battleship spun helplessly after its own wingmate, blinded by holographic decoys, rammed straight into its engines. On the Hammer of Freedom, Samantha directed the chaos with surgical precision. Every order sent ships striking where panic opened gaps. Every feint baited the coalition deeper into disarray. Yet behind her composure, she felt the weight of risk pressing hard. One mistake, one miscalculation, and the entire Second Fleet would vanish beneath sheer numbers. Commander Holt tracked enemy reinforcements closing in from the far flank. "They're adapting," he said. "Slowly, but it's happening." Samantha nodded. "Then we end it before they finish adapting." She gave the order for the Boomstick 9000. The weapon was barely legal even by Earth standards, a spinal-mounted railgun spanning half the Hammer of Freedom's length, cobbled together from salvaged alien tech and human recklessness. It had one shot before the coils burned out completely. The massive weapon fired. A spear of energy brighter than any sun lanced across the void, punching straight through the Coalition's central command carrier. The ship split apart in silence, debris spiraling like glitter across the stars. Half the enemy fleet broke formation instantly, leaderless crews panicking as human ships pressed the attack. But the Coalition still outnumbered them, still fought with desperation bordering on madness. A Threxian dreadnought scored a direct hit on the ESS Liberty Bell, tearing through its aft sections. Samantha felt each loss like a stone dropped into her chest, but pushed the fleet forward, relentless. Jenny's voice cut through comms mid-battle. "Admiral, the hyperdrive core's overheating. We're 3 degrees from catastrophic failure. Steve's been praying at it for 10 straight minutes, but I don't think caffeine alone can save us this time." "Keep it together," Samantha said. 5 minutes more." She didn't explain what happened in 5 minutes. Across the battle space, human boarding teams struck crippled enemy vessels, seizing weapons, jamming comms, spreading terror with precision raids. Entire squadrons surrendered rather than face Marines who painted smiley faces on their armor and carried speakers blasting Eye of the Tiger. Finally, with Coalition forces teetering on collapse, Samantha gave the signal. Dozens of human ships powered up drives simultaneously. But instead of retreating, they jumped short range across the system, appearing at point-blank range around the remaining enemy command ships. The maneuver, impossible by conventional safety standards, encircled the Coalition in seconds. Rico's voice came over comms, exultant. "Ladies and gentlemen, the trap is shut." The boomstick fired again, coils melting from the strain, and the Coalition's last command ship vanished in a silent blossom of fire. What remained of the alien fleets broke. Threxian and Zarkan vessels scattered in every direction, discipline shattered, morale vaporized. Some surrendered outright. Others fled into deep space. On the Hammer of Freedom, silence settled slowly as the last enemy signals vanished from sensors. The battle was over. Commander Holt exhaled softly. "They're retreating. All of them." Jenny reported from engineering, voice ragged with relief. "Hyperdrives holding." "Barely." "Reactors crying but alive." Rico returned to the fleet, fighter wings circling like triumphant hawks. "Told you we'd make history," he said. Samantha looked over the ruined system, the drifting hulks of what had been the largest fleet in galactic history. She felt neither triumph nor pity, only the certainty that the galaxy would never see humans the same way again. A transmission arrived from the shattered remnants of the Coalition leadership. Surrender. Unconditional. Immediate. Samantha accepted, without ceremony. Hours later, as crews made repairs and rescued survivors, new orders came from Earth Command. The Third Fleet was mobilizing for peacekeeping operations. Samantha read the message twice before handing it silently to Holt. He raised one brow. "Peacekeeping." "Apparently," she said dryly, "the galaxy hasn't panicked enough yet." Far beyond the wreckage of Yoveric, 7, alien worlds watched the footage in stunned silence, the Second Fleet carving through armadas like lightning through dry wood, Earth forces turning the proudest empires into rubble between cups of coffee. And across those worlds, one truth settled like ash after fire. Humanity hadn't come to join their civilized galaxy. It had come to end the war and remind everyone why Earth's fleets had stayed home for so long. Because when they finally arrived, there was no stopping them.